guys, it's Karen here from the Stitch Sessions. Welcome and welcome back. This week we have a really cute and quick crochet tutorial for you. Those of you that know me, you know I like being extra crafty with my crochets. So this week are cute and super quick. You're probably thinking, what the heck is this strip for? Well, this is a beautiful crocheted curtain tie back. Yes. So a few weeks ago, I was just doing some cleaning and I was moving the curtains around and I noticed that the tie fell off. And it wasn't the tie that belonged to these curtains. It was just a tie I had lying around and I thought, okay, it just fell off the hook. Only to find out that this thing is basically, there was this like kind of a cording and it basically was disintegrating because I had tied it in a little bit of a knot and all the ties, this was the only kind of decent one left. So they were all disintegrating. And then I thought, aha, how can I solve this problem with crochet? So I went about kind of thinking what type of design I wanted for a tie. And the basic idea is pretty easy. It's just a strip, right? Now this one was pretty thick, as you can see. This belonged to another set of curtains that I'd had for a long time. And it was just put there as a temporary fix and it's been there for a few years. So this was a perfect opportunity to do this. So I created this one and I'm really happy with it. I absolutely love and adore this, this fabric. It took me forever to find just the right drapes. And I love the color blue, but I didn't want it to be overpowering. I already have a lot of blue in here. And this dusty blue with just kind of the embroidered floral design was just the best. So I thought adding some white tie backs would be a lovely accent, but just subtle enough that it doesn't overpower the drapes. And depending on the room, I don't necessarily always use tie backs, but in this particular case, even though it doesn't come through the over the window that much, I just really felt like pulling the curtains back a little bit more just brings that much more light into the room. And so the tie backs work really well and it does fit in kind of a little bit with that touch of a vintage and Victorian feel that I love so much. So I think if you are into that style or you're looking for something interesting to add to some room decor, or maybe you're going to do this as part of a housewarming gift, which I think would be really pretty too. It is a 4-row strip, right? So nice and easy. We start off with single crochets at the beginning. We've got half double crochets. There is a puff stitch V-stitch, and then we've got some chains and picots. Now, if you are a beginner, that may sound intimidating to you, but I promise you, I'm going to show it you nice and slow and you're going to go, oh, it's actually not too bad. So this is a project I think anyone can do at any level. So I hope that you will think so too. So without further ado, let's just quickly talk about our materials that you should gather together and then we'll whip these up in no time and you'll have these fabulous curtain tie backs. Okay, so one thing you want to make sure you have on hand is a measuring tape, or you could use a piece of string if you don't have a measuring tape on hand, but I find measuring tape always gives you a better accuracy. And this is so you can measure the length of your desired tie back, okay? The yarn I'm gonna be using is one of my favorites, the 24/7 cotton yarn by Lion Brand. This is white. I think the color is just simply called white. Yes, it is. And this is left over from the Serafina Sun Hat project. So that was just a couple weeks back. And if you missed that one, I'll definitely leave a link for it in the description box down below because you are going to love how that hat came out. So this is the yarn I used for that. And so it worked out perfectly because this is the yarn I'm going to be using for this project. So these come in 100-gram balls or skeins, and they contain 170 meters or 185 yards. If you are really scrupulous about your measurements, you will not need a full skein of this. So I think you're going to be a-okay. It is considered a medium weight number 4 yarn, and the hook size that I'm using is actually a small hook. Now I don't use this too often. It's a 3.25 millimeter hook. I'll put a graphic up there if you can't quite see it. And it's also known as a D or a size 3 if you go by those sizes. So I was just playing around with it and I found that this size actually worked up quite nicely with this yarn. So those of you that know me know I don't usually go this small, but once in a while I will dabble in a smaller hook. So that's the hook I've got for this particular project. And as always, make sure that you have a yarn needle on hand to weave in your ends at the end, and of course a handy pair of scissors to snip your yarn. So once you've got your materials together, we're going to be ready to start crocheting up our tie backs. Okay, so we are going to begin by placing a slip knot onto our hook here. And all we want to do is create a chain the length of our desired length. So in my case, I am going to chain until I have 22 inches, which is, I believe, approximately 56 centimeters if you go by metric. So all you want to do is just yarn over and pull through. And remember, anytime you make your initial chains, be careful not to chain too tightly because you want to be able to work back into this chain. Now, if you are a super tight crocheter, like if you've got a really tight tension, a little trick I always say is go up a hook size or two, depending on how tightly you crochet, and then use that for your initial chain, and that'll help to keep your gauge a little bit more even. So for example, this one is a 3.25. I might recommend you go up to a 4.5 just to give you a little bit more leeway. So you're gonna have nice little chain just like that. So I'm gonna keep going until I get my length. Okay, so I have done a chain here and I'm just measuring it. And it just comes up to about 21 inches. There is a little bit of stretch here. And I have 108 chains. Now, I wanted to stop here in particular because I want my number of chains to be easily divisible by 3. And so if I divide that by 3, it's going to give me 36 nice and even. Now, the number 36 is not important. It's the fact that it can be divided evenly by 3, and you'll see why much later on when we work on the stitches. So I have 108 stitches, and so now what we want to do is we want to create our first row here. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain one more, and we're going to then go into the second chain from the hook. So the loop that's on the hook never counts. I'm going to skip this first one that I just did and go into the next one. Now for this project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my work over and I'm going to work into these back bumps here. See how there's these little bumps? That's what I'm going to work into. If you're a little newer and it's kind of fiddly, you can just absolutely go right into the front of the stitch. So I'm just going to turn mine over. I'm going to go into that back bump. I'm going to insert my hook, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a single crochet into each and every single stitch. So I'm going to go into each back bump and place a single crochet. And at the end of round number 1, I should still have 108 stitches. So whatever number you have, you just want to make sure that you do indeed have the same number at the end of row number 1. Okay, so I have completed row number 1. So I have something that looks like this. There it is up close. And because I worked into the back bumps, you can see that it's got a nice finished edge there, which I really like. Now, it does have lots of stretch here. So, you know, I wanted 22 inches, but it might even sit a little bit lower, but I'm okay with that because I want my curtain tie to have a more relaxed look and I want it to slant a bit. So that's totally fine with me. If you want one that's a little bit tighter and pulls the curtain right back, then you'll just crochet less chains. Okay, so let's go on to row number 2, and this is where that multiple of 3 becomes important. And the reason being is because we're going to do some V stitches here, okay? And that is done in multiples of 3. So what we're going to do is at the end here, we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and this will count as a half double crochet stitch. Then we're going to turn our work, so it's going to give us a little bit of height. And then what you're going to do is you're going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch we're going to do a V stitch using half double crochet stitches. So you'll yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch to pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops there, And then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, just a typical half double crochet. Then we're going to chain 1. And after that, you're going to place 1 more half double crochet back into that same stitch. So I've yarned over, I'm going to go into the same stitch, pull up a loop, and then pull through all 3. Now, you can't really see it just yet, but there it is. That is a V-stitch created with half double crochet stitches. So a V-stitch consists of a half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet. There are many variations on the V-stitch. Most commonly, you're going to see the V-stitch done using double crochets. Some people even chain 2 in between. I am going to leave mine this way with a chain 1. Okay, so then what you want to do is we're going to keep doing these stitches all the way down to the end of our row. So what we need to do though is we skip the next 2 stitches, and then into the 3rd stitch we V-stitch again. So we half double crochet, okay, chain 1, I try not to do it too tightly, and then I half double crochet again back into that same stitch. Just like that, okay? So again, skip 2, 1, 2, and into the 3rd stitch, we V-stitch. And that's basically the repeat for the rest of row number 2. Chain 1 and half double crochet, okay? So now you can see it creates just a little bit of a lacy effect, just a little bit, okay? So go ahead and do that all the way to the end. I'm going to meet up with you near the end just to take you through how to finish off this row. Okay, so I have completed row number 2 with my half double crochet V-stitches. So I have something that looks like this. It's just got a little bit of a lacy effect to it. So now we're going to go on to row number 3. And so what we're going to do is we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. And we're going to continue creating V-stitches, but we are going to use mini puff stitches now. So what's going to happen is we're going to work into the chain 1 spaces of all of our little V-stitches here. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that chain 1 space, and pull up a loop. And what you want to do is you want to pull that loop up so it's at the same height of the chain 3. Then you'll yarn over. Notice I'm kind of securing it a little bit with my index finger. I'm going to insert again to pull up another loop to the same height. So I'm going to have 5 loops on the hook. And I call this a mini puff stitch because a proper puff stitch can go up to 5 loops through. So it can be quite puffy. So this is just not quite as puffy. That's why I call it a mini puff stitch. So once you've done that, you will then yarn over and pull through 4 of the 5 so that you have 2 loops on your hook. And then you're going to pull through the 2 of them. Now, depending on the type of puff stitch you do, you might not do that little bit I did at the end. You might just pull through all 5. In this particular design, that is what I'm doing. So this is our mini puff. Then I'm going to chain 1 like you would with a regular V-stitch. Then I'm going to go back into that chain space and do another mini puff. So I'm going to yarn over, insert to pull up a loop, yarn over again, insert to pull up another loop. So I have 5 loops on the hook, and then I'm going to yarn over, pull through 4, and then I will yarn over to pull through the last 2. Okay, so you have a nice little V-stitch there made of puff stitches, and you can see it sits much taller than the half double crochets. Okay, so then all you're going to do is you're going to find the next chain 1 space and you're going to do the same. So I'm going to go in to create my first puff, and I'm going to insert and pull up twice, yarn over, pull through 4, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. Chain 1, yarn over, insert again, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop a second time, pull through 4, and then pull through 2. Look at how pretty that is. So nice and tall. And that is all you're going to do for row number 3. And it's nice and easy. You don't even have to count stitches. Just look for all the chain 1 spaces, and you're going to do that all the way down to the end. And this is my last puff V-stitch here in the row. And then we have this, I guess what would have been the chain 2 to start us off on row 2. So all we're going to do is we're going to place a double crochet into the top of that chain 2, if I can find it, and that's going to be right about there. So I'm going to double crochet, pull through 2 and pull through 2. That's going to give us the height we need to make it nice and equal. And there we have row number 3. Look at how pretty that is. It creates lots of great texture. Just love that. Okay, so now we need to go on to row number 4. And we are just about done. So for row number 4, we're going to add a little picot scalloped edging here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to chain 1 and turn. And then into the very first stitch, we're going to place a single crochet here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to go back into the second chain and we're going to picot. We're going to create our first little picot point. So you're going to insert your hook, pull the loop through to slip stitch, and that creates a little picot point. And then you chain 1. And now we're going to go to the space between the V's and we're just going to single crochet. Okay, so now you've got something that looks like this. So it's just a little arch above the V stitch there. Isn't that neat? Okay, let's do that again. So you will chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then into the second chain here, you will insert your hook to slip stitch. And that's what creates that little picot point. Then you chain 1 more and you go all the way over to the space between the V's and you single crochet. There we go. So you get something that looks like that. Okay, so I'll do that one more time. I'm going to chain 1, 2, and 3 into the second chain. I'm going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1 more, and into the space I will single crochet. Okay, and this is what you're going to do all the way to the end. So that's what gives it that extra little, so when your tie is hanging down this way, it just has that pretty little scalloped edging. Nice and easy. So go ahead and do that all the way to the end. All right, so I've just come to my very end here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this space. You can go into the top of the chain 3 if you like. In fact, that's what I'll do. And but I've done both methods and they both come out great. And you're just going to single crochet at the very end here. And then your tie is complete. Now, I am not going to make a little loop here so that you can kind of rest it on the hook, because it's already pretty lacy here and I want to have a nice seamless look that like kind of just melts into the wall, so to speak. So these little spaces here are perfect to just, you know, place on the hook. Now, if you want to make a little loop, I'm just going to show you what I would do is once you've done that single crochet, I would chain maybe about 5 or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's stop at 5. And then I'd go all the way here, somewhere in here where we did that first single crochet, and I would just slip stitch to join. Okay. And then that creates just a little loop for you. Now, for me, that's just a bit too big. So you can, like I said, you can experiment with this. You can do less chains. So if I took a chain out, and maybe you just want to slip stitch closer to up here. We're just going to stick it right in there. And there we go. So you have a little smaller loop, and then that can just hook on the wall. So, and then you would just do that on this side here. You would just do a couple of chains and slip stitch. But like I said, this works perfectly to just hook it on the wall. So I'm going to leave mine as is, and that is it. So I'm just going to take that out, and now I'm going to snip my yarn, and my tie is complete. So all I need to do now is weave in this end, and then you just need to make a second one. Now I already have my second one done. So this is what it looks like. Isn't it pretty? It really creates a nice, beautiful texture, a gorgeous little edge there. And now I'm ready to place this on my curtain and get rid of that old worn out tie. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And here it is, guys. So I love how it sits so beautifully. It just has enough tension to hold the curtains back, but it's not too crowded. It gives a nice, beautiful, relaxed look. And I myself love a vintage kind of a Victorian feel. So I'm really happy with how this came out. It did not take me long at all. And what do you guys think? Should I have made it a little thicker, a little thinner? I'm kind of happy with the thickness as it is, but you can certainly make ties that are much thicker. So this was just a beautiful, quick little 4-row repeat. This would also make for great embellishments on the trims of things, maybe even the trim of a blanket, or if you've got like crochet thread, maybe you want to do this as the trim of a shirt or something like that. So there's lots of uses for this little project. And I'll be curious to see what you guys decide to do with yours. Now, if you have any questions about this project, make sure to leave it for me in the comment box down below. And I know a lot of you do like to email me, so feel free to email me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And the website, crochetcrafty.com, has a lot of great resource tools there for you. So make sure you come on over and visit me on the site. There's a lot of free written patterns on there, sizing charts, which are great if you are working on garments or hats or things like that. And there's also a link to my Etsy shop if you want to look at any further patterns. So that's it for me today, guys. I hope that you have a great day. I hope you're having beautiful summer weather wherever you are. And I hope you spend it doing a little bit of crochet. Oh, and don't forget, guys, come and say hi to me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. And if you're new here and you had a good time hanging out with us today, I invite you to click that subscribe button so you'll be notified every time I upload a brand new video, which is every Wednesday morning. So come and hang out with us. And as always, make sure you take good care of yourselves. And I'll see you guys in next week's session, okay? Bye-bye.